Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to our reading through the Gospel of Luke. Today, we actually cover the whole of Luke chapter 15 in our reading. And that might sound like a lot, but it's only 32 verses. And in those 32 verses, we find three parables that are intended to be read in one fluid motion. That's why today's reading is so much in comparison to other days this week. That in Luke chapter 15, we find the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the lost sheep, and the parable of the lost son, or what's referred to as the prodigal son. In each of these stories, the intention or the flow is that we would see that something is lost and that someone goes out of their way to find it and brings it back to where it's intended to be. So in the case of the lost coin and in the lost sheep, it goes out and is found and then is brought back. And so the listeners would have anticipated, as the son becomes lost, that someone would go and retrieve the son and bring him home. What we find in the story is that that's not what happens. And it's also common that people misunderstand the meaning of prodigal. The prodigal doesn't mean lost. Prodigal means having spent everything. And so when we get to the point of the prodigal son story, we're immediately upset at this younger son because he doesn't seem to understand what he has and what he's willing to just give up because of a lie that he believes about the life that he has. That the younger son is blessed. He has a blessed life, a family, property to work, family property that he will eventually come into ownership of. And we find later in the story that the older brother seems to also misunderstand that he is blessed and the life that he has, the father that he has, the family that he has. And through it all, we find that it's obvious that the only person in the story that understands that they're blessed is the father, who's willing to get rid of and give back things that people don't deserve or haven't earned, and understands that he's blessed whether he has those things or doesn't have those things. What makes him blessed is the family that he has and the God that he serves and the God that provided the things that he has. That, in fact, our God that we worship, Jesus Christ, the Father, the Spirit, that they are prodigal. We have a prodigal God that was willing to spend everything to welcome you home. And that we are called to be sons and daughters that see that we are blessed, that we have an abundant life, regardless of how much or how little we have, regardless of where we live or what kind of living we have, regardless of what we do with our work or what we don't do with our work, regardless of innumerable factors in life, that we are blessed, just like the younger son and the older son were blessed. The most important thing is that we remember that we're blessed, that we draw from a position of being blessed, that we don't miss the fact that we are, and that like the father and like the widow with the coin and like the shepherd, that we would make it a point in our life that from a position of blessedness, do what it takes to find the lost thing and bring it home. That we have this amazing privilege and opportunity to participate with God as he reconciles, makes right, makes whole, brings back into togetherness the whole world, a ministry of reconciliation and healing. Today, my challenge to you, my encouragement to you, is to remember that you are blessed. Remember that God cares for you in ways that you potentially could never even measure or understand. But in that same breath, from our position of blessedness, from the life that we have, regardless of whatever that life looks like, to go and find people that may have forgotten or maybe haven't known at all that they too are blessed. Help them to see the value in their life and the God that loves them so much. I'm going to pray that over you. I hope the rest of your day is blessed. Father, thank you for life. Thank you for the ways that you were willing to spend it all, that you were willing to become prodigal for us. Not because we deserve it, not because we earn it, but because you see the beauty in your creation and you value that creation and are willing to bless and send out in blessedness us in all of our brokenness and in all of our blindness. And so, Father, help us as we read through the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15 today, that we would wrestle deeply with how blessed we are and what that means for how we live our life. It's all thanks to your Spirit. So it's in your name that I pray. Amen.